The forgotten girl on the red carpet. The lights were blinding. Flashes popped in every direction. Camera shutters clicked like a swarm of insects, loud and relentless. Cheers and gasps from fans echoed down the red carpet as the stars arrived. One by one. There were expensive dresses, sharp suits, and people who walked like they owned the world. But Keanu Reeves walked differently. Quieter. Calmer. Like a man who didn't believe the world owed him anything. He smiled politely, nodded to photographers, and waved gently to the fans behind the barrier. Even in this glamorous storm, his eyes searched the crowd. He wasn't looking for fame or praise. He was looking for something real. Maybe a face. Maybe a feeling. Something deeper than the noise. Then it happened. Just ahead of him, a small figure stumbled. It was quick, barely noticeable in the glitter of celebrities and flashing lights. But Keanu saw it. A young girl, maybe 13, dressed in an oversized hoodie and sneakers far too old for the shine of the red carpet. She must have won a special contest or been invited as part of a charity. She looked out of place, nervous, wide-eyed, shrinking behind the tall adults around her. Her shoelace had come undone, and as she bent to tie it, someone bumped her shoulder. She fell to her knees. No one stopped. No one looked back, except Keanu. He paused. People around him hesitated. Publicists whispered urgently. Photographers lowered their cameras in confusion. But he ignored them. He walked over to the girl, knelt down slowly, and gently spoke. "May I?" The girl looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. Her lip trembled. She couldn't even form a word. She just nodded. Keanu took the lace gently in his hands and tied it. Double knot. Slow, careful, respectful. As if this simple act meant more than any movie premiere ever could. There was silence. For a few seconds, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, someone took a photo. And another. And another. The crowd began to murmur, unsure of what they were witnessing. A movie star, kneeling on a red carpet, tying a forgotten girl's broken shoelace like she was royalty. Keanu stood up, smiled at her, and gently said, "You're good now." She nodded again, too shy to speak, but tears shimmered in her eyes. She would never forget this moment. Keanu didn't pose for the cameras after that. He walked forward, back to the spotlight, but something had changed. Not in him. He had always been this way, but in the people watching. For a brief moment, the world remembered that greatness wasn't loud. Sometimes, it was quiet, humble, kind. Backstage, a famous TV host whispered to her assistant, "That wasn't for the cameras. That was real." And she was right. But the story didn't end there. Because that girl, she had a story too. A story Keanu didn't know yet. A story of loss, silence, and a hidden dream buried deep beneath layers of pain. That single act of kindness would change everything. Not just for her, but for him too. Because the universe has a strange way of bringing people together. Sometimes with explosions and drama, other times with nothing more than a broken shoelace and a soft-spoken actor who refused to walk past someone in need. What Keanu didn't know, what no one knew, was that this girl had almost given up on herself. And tonight, she had come, not to watch the stars, but to say goodbye. And he had just unknowingly stopped that goodbye with a knot of laces and a whisper of human kindness. The girl who almost vanished, the crowd returned to its noise. Celebrities passed. Cameras flashed again. But for the young girl standing near the edge of the carpet, the world had slowed. She touched the shoelace he tied, still in shock. Her fingers trembled. No one noticed her tears. Not the stars, not the staff, not even the fans pressed against the rails. But inside her chest, something had shifted. Her breath came shallow. Her thoughts were loud, racing, trying to make sense of what just happened. His voice still echoed in her mind. "You're good now." It was the first kind thing anyone had said to her in weeks, maybe longer. Her name was Lila. She hadn't told anyone here, of course. She wasn't famous. She wasn't anyone important. Just a girl who had been given one ticket by a quiet charity program that sent letters to kids in shelters. A last-minute miracle, they had called it. She almost didn't come. She had nothing to wear, no family to bring, no reason to believe anything good would happen. But something in her heart had whispered, "Just go." And now she stood here, shaken, confused, and full of questions she couldn't put into words. What Lila hadn't told anyone was that she had run away from the group earlier that evening. They were supposed to take a group photo and leave. She slipped out, unnoticed. She wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She had a small note in her pocket, folded, soft, worn from being touched too often. On it, in shaky handwriting, were 3 simple lines. I tried my best. I'm sorry for everything. Please don't look for me. It was meant for the social worker. Lila didn't plan to be here tomorrow. She hadn't told anyone where she was going. After the red carpet. She didn't even know herself. The streets were cold, but she had made up her mind. She had no place, no future. No one who truly saw her, until he did. That one moment, so small, so human, rattled something loose inside her. She sat down on the edge of a concrete planter, holding her knees close. The city buzzed around her, but she felt like she was floating above it. Outside of it. Forgotten by the world, but now unsure if she wanted to disappear after all. A hand touched her shoulder. You okay? It wasn't him. It was a security guard. An older woman with tired eyes but a kind voice. Lila nodded, but it wasn't honest. You're not supposed to be alone out here, sweetie. Lila looked down. The guard hesitated, then sighed. Come on, let's get you some water. Lila followed her, not because she wanted to, but because something in her wanted to be seen again. Just once more. They led her to a quiet spot behind the event building. Not glamorous, not loud, just calm. The woman gave her a small water bottle and said, Wait. Here a minute. Lila sat alone, her thoughts spinning. She thought of her mom, who used to sing her lullabies, gone now, of her brother, lost to the system, and her own sense of self, which had faded little by little, until she barely recognized the girl in the mirror anymore. Then the door creaked. Someone walked in. Lila turned, her breath caught. It was him, Keanu Reeves. He stopped when he saw her. He tilted his head slightly, gentle curiosity in his eyes. We meet again, he said softly. Lila froze. She couldn't speak. She couldn't even move. Keanu looked at the security woman, who gave a knowing nod. Then he walked over, slowly, as, if not to startle a wild bird, he sat down beside her, not too close. Just enough to show her he meant no harm. I asked about you, he said. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Lila swallowed hard. Why? Keanu shrugged lightly. Because sometimes people look fine when they're not, and sometimes a small moment can mean everything. Silence. She looked at him. This was the man from the movies, the man everyone knew, but right now he looked at her like she was the most important person in the room. Thank you, she whispered. Keanu smiled. For what? For seeing me. He didn't answer right away. He looked out into the city skyline beyond the fence. Then, he said something she would remember forever. You were never invisible, just waiting to be noticed by the right eyes. Her lips trembled. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. Keanu didn't offer a tissue. He didn't try to fix it. He just sat with her, and for the first time in years, Lila didn't feel broken. She felt real. After a long silence, she pulled the folded note from her pocket. She handed it to him. I was going to leave, she whispered. Tonight. He looked at the note. then at her. Pain flickered in his expression. He handed it back gently. Then it's a good thing you stayed. Keanu stood. You know, he added, sometimes the world gives us exactly one moment to change everything. Then he smiled. Maybe this was yours. Lila watched him walk away again. Not toward the cameras this time, but toward a small service door. He looked back once. She waved, and this time she meant it. The letter that never reached the river Lila didn't sleep that night. She sat alone in the quiet shelter room they found for her. The staff had been kind. The bed was clean. The food was warm. But her heart was restless. Her mind kept circling. Back to the red carpet, the broken shoelace, and the man who sat beside her and listened like no one else had in years. She held the folded letter again, staring at the words she almost left behind. The paper had bent edges and tear marks. It had been written during her darkest hour, when her chest felt heavy with things she didn't know how to explain. But now, something had changed. It wasn't fixed. Her pain didn't vanish. Her past didn't rewrite itself. But the weight was lighter, and it was because of him. In the morning, she slipped out early, the letter in her pocket. The city was still waking up, quiet and gray. She found her way to the small bridge near the shelter. It wasn't far from where she had thought about ending everything. The river below moved slowly, carrying leaves and city dust. She held the letter over the railing, fingers trembling. She could still let it go. Let the old pain sink into the water and vanish. But her hand didn't move. She sighed, then pulled the paper back and unfolded it one more time. I tried my best. I'm sorry for everything. Please don't look for me. She stared at the words, and then, for the first time, she picked up a pen from her pocket and added something underneath. But someone saw me, and maybe that's enough reason to try again. She folded it up again, but this time, she didn't drop it into the river. She tucked it into her hoodie pocket and turned away. That afternoon, she returned to the event building. Not to see celebrities, not to chase autographs, but because she had questions, and because something deep inside her whispered that this wasn't over. She asked one of the volunteers if Keanu was still in town. They didn't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Celebrities came and went fast. Lila waited by the back gate again, near where he had found her before. Hours passed. The sky darkened. The stars returned. People moved past her like waves. No one noticed her sitting there, until a quiet voice said, "You again?" She turned. Keanu stood there in a simple black hoodie and jeans. No cameras, no lights. Just him. Lila stood up, unsure if she was dreaming. "You came back," he said. She nodded. "I wanted to say something." Keanu smiled. "Then I'll listen." They sat again in the same quiet spot, the city humming gently in the distance. "I almost did something bad," Lila said. "You stopped it without knowing." He didn't flinch. He didn't ask questions. He just waited. "I thought I had no reason to stay," she whispered. "But then you looked at me like I mattered, and no one's done that in a long, long time." Keanu nodded slowly. "Sometimes we think we're just background in everyone else's story, but the truth is, we all have a story, and it deserves to be heard." Lila reached into her pocket and handed him the folded letter. "This was supposed to be goodbye," she said. He opened it. Read it. The silence was long. When he looked back at her, his eyes were glassy. "Thank you for trusting me with this," he said softly. He folded it carefully like it was a treasure. "Can I keep it?" he asked. Lila hesitated, then nodded. "I'll protect it," he promised, and she believed him. They talked for a while after that, about small things, her favorite books, his favorite places to walk. Nothing dramatic, just two people sitting, under the night sky, talking like they had known each other forever. Before he left, he looked at her and said, "What do you want, Lila?" "Not what people expect, not what you think you're allowed to want. But what you want. She looked down at her shoes, then up at him. I want to matter. I want to find something that makes me feel whole again. Keanu reached into his backpack and pulled out a small leather journal. It was worn, soft at the edges. I carry this with me, he said. I write in it whenever I feel lost. He handed it to her. Write your story. Even if no one reads it yet. Write it anyway. Lila held it like it was something holy. And if you ever finish a chapter you're proud of, he added, send it to me. She blinked. How? He smiled, reached into his pocket, and handed her a small card. Plain, white, with only one email written in tiny letters. Don't share it, he said with a wink. It's only for people who make it through the hard part. Lila clutched the journal and the card against her chest. Thank you, she whispered. He stood and looked down at her with gentle eyes. You already mattered, he said. You just forgot for a while. And then he was gone again like a ghost wrapped in kindness. But this time, Lila didn't feel empty watching him leave. She felt like something had just begun. The story she started to write, the journal felt heavy in her hands, not because of its weight, but because of what it meant. It wasn't just a notebook. It was a promise, a second chance. A voice she had long buried now whispering again. Lila sat by the window in the small shelter room, watching the city below. Cars moved like tiny stars. People hurried with bags and phones and purpose. And here she was, still, quiet, uncertain, but with something new inside her. She opened the journal. For the first time, the pages were cream-colored, soft, and untouched. She stared at the first page for a long time. Her pen hovered above it. Doubt crept in. What if her words weren't good enough? What if her story wasn't worth telling? Then she remembered what Keanu said. You already mattered. You just forgot for a while. So she wrote. Not a perfect sentence. Not something deep. Just 4 simple words. My story starts here. And that was enough. For the next few days, she wrote every morning. Bits and pieces, memories, fears, small happy moments. Big, painful ones. It poured out like rain after a dry season. She didn't edit. She didn't worry about grammar. She just let herself speak on the page. Sometimes she cried while writing. Sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she stared at a blank page for hours. But she didn't stop. The shelter staff began to notice a change in her. She talked more, smiled more, even helped another girl one night who came in soaked from the rain. You'll feel like you don't belong, Lila had told her. But that feeling doesn't get the final word. Those words didn't come from nowhere. They came from inside her, from the wounds she had carried, from the man who reminded her she had value. Then, one morning, she finished a chapter. It was about her mother, not the part where she lost her, but the part where they danced in the kitchen to old songs. Her mother had twirled her with flour on their hands and laughter in the air. It was a good memory, and it hurt to write. But when she read it back, she smiled through the tears. She opened the email app on the old shelter computer, typed the address. From the white card, she hesitated before clicking send, but then she closed her eyes, took a breath, and hit the button. Subject: From the girl with the broken shoelace message, I finished 1 chapter. Thank you for giving me the courage. Attachment: Chapter 1, Lila, text. She didn't expect a reply. She assumed people like him didn't have time for things like this. But sending it still felt powerful. Like planting a seed in the ground and walking away, trusting it might grow. The next morning, she found something waiting in her inbox. From K. Reeves. Subject: I read every word. Her heart skipped. She opened it. Lila, thank you for sharing your chapter with me. Your words have more weight than you know. They're soft but strong, fragile but brave. I read every word slowly, and when I finished, I sat with it in silence. You wrote something real. That takes courage. Please keep writing. The world needs your voice. And I'm proud to be one of the first people who got to hear it. With deep respect. Keanu Lila wiped her eyes again and again as she read it. Not because she was sad, but because for the first time someone she looked up to believed in her. Not as a fan, not as a charity case, but as a person with value and something to say. She printed the email, taped it to the inside cover of the journal, and every time she felt small, she would open it and read his words. But the world wasn't done testing her. One rainy afternoon, she was walking back from a nearby bookstore when she saw something across the street. A group of boys crowded around. A smaller kid, shouting, pushing. One of them grabbed the boy's backpack and tossed it into the gutter. Lila froze. This was the kind of moment she used to hide from. The kind where she'd lower her eyes and walk faster. But not today. She crossed the street. Her hands shook. Her heart pounded. "Leave him alone," she said, louder than she thought she could. The boys turned, surprised. One of them laughed. "What are you going to do?" "I'll scream," she said. "And people will come, and you'll regret this." For a second, they didn't move. Then one of them rolled his eyes. "She's crazy," he muttered, and they walked off. Lila ran to the boy, who was wiping his face and trying not to cry. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "They do this a lot?" she added gently. He nodded again. She picked up his backpack and handed it to him. "They're wrong about you," she said. "You're stronger than they know." He looked at her like she was a superhero, and in that moment, she felt it. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, and she was becoming the kind of person she used to wish would come save her. Her words reached the world. The shelter room felt different now. Not because anything had changed outside, but because Lila had changed inside. Every night, she wrote in the journal. Not because someone told her to. Not because she was healing perfectly, but because the pages gave her something no place ever had before. Freedom. And voice. Her voice. Her second chapter was about her brother. How he used to tell her bedtime stories, even when they both had empty stomachs. How he'd hold her hand in the dark, whispering, "We'll make it. Promise." She didn't know where he was now. The system had split them apart. But in the story, he stayed with her. She wrote the ending she wished was true. When she finished the chapter, she sent it to Keanu again. This time, his reply came even faster. "Lila, I remember a line from your first chapter. The one where you said you were scared of being forgotten. Well, just so you know, this story made me remember my own brother. We're not close, but your words made me want to call him. You're not forgotten. Not by me, not by the world you're shaping with your words. If you're ready, I have something in mind for you. Would you like to meet someone?" Lila stared at the message. "Meet someone," she replied quickly. "Who?" His answer was short. "Someone who can help your voice go further." 2 days later, she found herself in a building that smelled of books and hope. It was a small publishing house. Nothing fancy, no glass towers, no red carpets, just a cozy space with warm lights and worn couches. Keanu met her outside. He wasn't in movie star mode, just jeans and a plain hoodie, a backpack slung over his shoulder, the same kind smile. "You ready?" he asked. Lila shrugged nervously. "I don't know," he smiled. "Then let's find out." Inside, a kind woman named Margot greeted them. She had silver hair, soft eyes, and hands covered in ink stains. She ran a non-profit project, Voices Unseen, a program that helped young writers tell their stories. Not just in journals, but in books, in classrooms, on stages. Keanu told me about you, Margot said gently. He said you have something special. But more importantly, he said your story can help others feel less alone. Lila sat there, stunned. She had come from nowhere, no family, no stability, no confidence. And yet, here she was, being told that her words mattered beyond her own healing. "We'd love to publish your story," Margot added, "with your permission." Tears filled Lila's eyes. She nodded slowly. "But only if it still belongs to you," Margot said. "Your truth, your power, your name." Lila opened her journal. On the first page, under "My story starts here," she added 2 more words, "by Lila." They gave her a cup of tea and told her to take her time. They would walk with her through the whole process, editing, designing, deciding what felt right. This wasn't about sales or fame. It was about something bigger, healing in public, so others could heal too. After the meeting, Keanu walked her back to the shelter. "You okay?" he asked. She smiled. "I'm still scared, but it feels like a good kind of scared." "That's the best kind," he said. "Why are you helping me so much?" she asked quietly. He stopped. "Because someone helped me once," he said, "and I promised I'd pass it on." Then he added something that stayed with her. "Sometimes, being kind doesn't change the whole world, but it might change someone's whole world. And that's enough." A month passed. Her story was published, online as a short ebook through Voices Unseen. It was free to download, and within 3 days, over 10,000 people had read it. Then the emails started, from kids, from parents, from teachers, from people she would never meet. I thought I was the only one. "Your story made me want to live." I read it out loud to my daughter. A girl from Finland wrote, "I printed your story and put it under my pillow. It made me feel brave again." Lila cried that night, not from sadness, but from something softer, something warmer. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't just the girl with the broken shoelace. She was Lila, the writer, the survivor, the girl who stayed when she almost didn't, and the world had finally heard her. One day, a letter arrived at the shelter with no return address, just her name written in shaky pencil lines. She opened it. Inside was a photo of 2 kids, her and her brother, taken years ago, and a note. "I read your story. I never stopped looking for you. I'm proud of you. Love, Nate." Her hands shook. Tears spilled down her cheeks. He was alive, and he had found her through her words. She held the photo close, her heart pounding with something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. The return of someone she never forgot. Lila ran. She didn't wait for the elevator. She raced down the stairs of the shelter, the letter clutched in her hand. Her legs ached, her breath came fast, but she didn't stop. The tears blurred her vision, but the smile on her face lit up every corner of her being. Nate, her brother, her protector, her best friend. He was real. He had read her story. He had found her. She burst out onto the sidewalk, spinning around, searching, hoping he'd be waiting right there somehow. But he wasn't. Still, she didn't feel alone anymore. She went back upstairs and sat on her bed, hugging the photo against her chest. It was old, creased at the edges, but she remembered the day it was taken. They had both been sitting on the steps of a broken playground, sharing a melted ice cream cone, laughing even though they had nothing else. The photo had been lost when they were separated by child services, but now it was here, and so was Nate. The next few days felt like a dream. She sent an email to the address that had attached the letter, and for the first time in years, she wrote her brother's name in the subject line. "It's me. Please come." An hour later, he replied, "I'm already on my way." He arrived in a borrowed coat and worn-out sneakers. His hair was longer, his shoulders a little heavier. But the moment she saw him walking through the shelter's front door, she knew. "Nate," she whispered. He saw her. His face cracked open with emotion. He dropped his bag, and she ran into his arms. They held each other for a long, long time. Years of silence melted into that one embrace. Pain, confusion, all of it. Washed away by the warmth of finally being found. "I never stopped looking," he said into her hair. Never. I thought you forgot, she whispered. He pulled back, shaking his head. Never. I just couldn't find you. They sat for hours. He told her everything. The foster homes, the quiet nights, how he kept asking about her, but no one ever gave answers. I searched your name one more time last week, he said, and your story came up. When I saw it was you, I couldn't breathe. They laughed, they cried, they remembered. And for the first time in years, they looked forward. Weeks passed, then months. Lila kept writing. Her story turned into a full book. Keanu helped her quietly in the background, never asking for credit. He even came to her first school reading, sitting in the last row, hidden under a baseball cap. Afterward, he gave her a thumbs up and disappeared before the crowd noticed him. But before he left a note on her chair. Your light is yours now. Shine it where the world needs it most. And she did. The book reached schools and libraries. Translated into different languages. Not because it was perfect, but because it was honest, real. Kids wrote to her from shelters, group homes, hospital beds. I want to live like you did. I want to write too, she replied to every letter she could. Nate got a job nearby and moved into a small apartment. They saw each other every weekend. Sometimes they sat in silence. Other times they watched old cartoons, the kind they used to laugh at when the world felt too heavy. They were rebuilding, not from scratch, but from memory. One day, Lila stood on a stage. In front of her were hundreds of people, students, teachers, survivors. She took a breath. My name is Lila, she said, voice steady. Some of you might know me as the girl with the broken shoelace. Soft laughter from the crowd. But today, I'm not here to talk about what happened to me. I'm here to talk about what came after. She told them about the night on the red carpet, the shoelace, the moment that changed everything. A man bent down to help me, she said, not because of cameras, not for attention, but because he saw someone no one else saw. She looked across the audience. Sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to save a life, to remind someone that they're not invisible. She held up her journal. This is my voice, but you have one too. Use it. Even if it trembles, even if the world tells you it's too small. Applause filled the hall. But Lila wasn't thinking about fame, or sales, or numbers. She was thinking about a night she almost didn't survive. And the man who gave her a reason to stay. Keanu never spoke publicly about Lila. When asked about her in interviews, he smiled and said, I just tied a shoelace. But those who knew the real story, those who had read her words, understood that it was more than that. It was a lifeline, a moment of connection in a world that moves too fast, a quiet man who paused for a forgotten girl, and in doing so, gave her the chance to become unforgettable. Years later, Lila became a counselor. She worked with kids who came from broken places. She kept a journal on her desk. She let them hold it sometimes, read parts of it. Not to show off, but to say, this is what healing looks like. And it's messy, but real. And on her wall, beside a photo of her and Nate, was a small framed quote. It simply read, You were never invisible, just waiting to be noticed by the right eyes. And every day she made sure someone else felt seen too, just like Keanu saw her, just like she saw herself.